Our guest this episode is Carmine DeFalco. He is president of Pixelite Digital Media. Carmine has spent the last 30 years helping clients engage, track, and deliver results through innovative digital solutions. Carmine's work covers a wide range of disciplines, including web and mobile apps, animation, video, augmented and virtual reality, interactive displays, and analytics. So he's here to discuss how technology can not only help us engage prospects, but also measure that engagement. Please welcome to the podcast, Carmine DeFalco. Carmine, welcome.
Welcome to the Engaging Personalities Podcast. I'm Anders Belanger, founder and CEO of Engagify, where we're on a mission to rehumanize business through engagement. We believe that we can all be more successful if we can command attention and deepen connection. So stick around to the end of the show and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest on a future episode. So let's get ready to engage.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm glad. And just to give our I want to say viewers, we do it on YouTube as well, but listeners, background, I met you back at Exhibitor Live, which is, a conference and trade show for trade shows. Whenever I say that, it sounds so meta, right? Like it's kind of, but probably, I don't know, like 2017 or 20, somewhere around there.
I think you're exactly right. Yeah. It's been a while. Been a couple of bumps on that trade show road, but it's it's a long time ago.
That's right. And so we continue to bump into each other at Exhibitor Lives, and I also use one of your products with our clients, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But before we do, in your bio, I said, last 30 years, helping clients with different types of technology. What were you doing 30 years ago? What brought you into this field of work?
Anders, I started all this, learned almost everything I'm using right now in high school. I mean, it's changed a little bit, but, when I was in high school, I was in the photography club, learned how to take pictures, learned how to develop film. I was in the stage crew, went and worked on lights, sound, and all that sort of stuff. And then I started fooling around with computers. It wasn't really a computer club because it was too early. But, we started working with the early computers, and we used to try and hack into things even back in those days and, create little games and all kinds of crazy stuff. And really all of that technology, that's exactly what I'm doing today. It's just migrated through all those years, and it's just been a continual, learning and fooling around with various things. And of course, that was really obscure stuff back in the day. Now it's mainstream everything, Even when I started my career, it was still really kind of, real nook and cranny kind of thing. You know what I mean? There weren't a lot of people in whatever it is, digital development. What's digital marketing is what it is now, I guess, But it's been a very interesting road. I've lived through the whole thing, and I love every second of it.
Your passion comes through for sure. So Carmine, again, I'm going to come back to the trade show thing, because again, that's how we know each other. Mm-hmm. Can you describe the, I guess it would be almost the many suite of products that are like, because I use TrackMany for measuring. Can you just kind of walk us through what those are? So that people, because again, we do a lot of trade shows, and some of our listeners, of course, are those kind of people too. So, what kind of technology are you, arming exhibitors with, and what can they do with it?
Yeah. So for many, many years, working with our digital marketing clients, we did a lot of things for sales forces and tools and direct marketing kind of campaigns and things like that, but some of that stuff always went to trade shows. There was always, our marketing department clients always had some trade show they were going to. So we would get involved in those things. And, eventually realized, hey, this is a little market whereby we could actually apply some of the incredible digital marketing stuff that we've learned. And that's engaging people, but it's also measuring that engagement and then optimizing what you do, which is kind of the core of what digital marketing is all about, right? And so we figured out that, hey, we could actually just develop some sort of off-the-shelf products, because not everybody really has the budget or the time, especially in trade shows, because it's very, it's a kind of a last minute industry, generally speaking, which is, sometimes these things take a long time to develop. And so it's a last minute kind of industry, generally speaking. And you really need stuff that's ready to roll, that you can deploy relatively quickly, And so we realized that we could develop a couple of purpose built little technical solutions that could be dropped in easily into a trade show situation. And those are the three products that you referenced. And we call them Many Suite. Basically, it's a one tool, which is called Engage Many, which is a way to stop people as they walk past your booth and let them think about some messages that you want them to think about in a kind of a fun way. Very quick engagement, 10 seconds, and then your booth staff has to step in and do their thing. Then we have a tool called Track Many, which is what you use, Anders, and that's basically a measurement tool. So once you've got them in your booth, you know how many people you dinged, with the badge scanner, but you don't really know a lot of other things. And that's what Track Many can do. It fills in the picture for people that want deeper knowledge to try and optimize what they're doing a little bit. And so we've been spending a lot of time on tracking, and digital marketing is a very tracking oriented,
Yeah.
analytics oriented kind of industry.
Let me just chime in on that too, because I like to think about this, and it's kind of like, where you've got brand marketing and then you had direct response marketing, right? Brand marketing was like the Nike commercials, just do it, and this aspirational. And then you had like direct response marketing going back way back when to like, sales letters still exist, but sales letters, and how many people, take people up on the offer, and you have a conversion rate and all that tracking. And I really like how, you took that again from the digital side of things, digital marketing, and brought in that measurement where sometimes people don't think there could be, right? Like it's kind of like you show up and we'll see what we get, right? But to actually dive into, what are the hot spots in the booth? What's really working? I find that, fascinating. Do you want to speak to that a little bit about the, kind of the measurement of trade
Yeah.
shows?
Yeah, I mean, I look at what we can do with our tool, and there are other technologies that can do similar types of things in different ways. But I look at it as kind of like website analytics, right? So we've been developing websites since the beginning of the web. And so, there's and every client that, might be listening to this, we all have websites, and we may or may not be involved with them, but what you can do in a trade show is very much like what you could do in a website, right? You have people that come anonymously to your corporate website or your product website or whatever it is, and they browse the content that you've decided to make available to them. And you may find out who they are if they happen to like give you information in a form that you might be offering, and you got them to sign into something, which is basically the equivalent of your badge scan. You talk them into giving up their information, right? But there's a ton of more people that come by the booth or come by your website that you don't know who they are. It's all anonymous, right? But there's still tremendous value in the data that you collect on a website. And again, parallels kind of a trade show situation. So all websites basically, people analyze the data from this anonymous stream and think about, hey, what pages are working, what content's working, what's not working, why isn't that working? Hey, maybe we should fade that out. Maybe we should blow out the content that's getting engagement, right? It's actually working. People are engaging with it for durations of time that are significant, right? So those are the kinds of variables that you can play with in web marketing, website analytics. And we can apply almost all those concepts to a trade show booth because it's the same thing. How deeply are people engaging? Our particular technology measures eyes, right? So we're measuring people looking at the content. So that's a pretty good measure of their engagement and the depth that they engage with you with the content. The more the better, I would say, just like a website would be. So you can use that information to optimize what you're doing, make it better.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. And I love that comparison of the, websites versus trade shows, because you look at how much effort people do, SEO on a website, and trying to convert that traffic, and looking at all the granular details. And then you look at how much money people spend on trade show exhibiting, and you wonder why they don't put that same kind of effort in. And I think for most of the people, they don't know how, right? They didn't know, or didn't know it was possible. And so that's what makes, your solution so special and unique, is enabling people to kind of dig in and learn from what they're doing, whether right or wrong, right? Just to kind of learn off of that. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
measurement is not something that is commonly, it certainly traditionally wasn't commonly done in trade shows. I mean, you did have back in the day, people would have a hand clicker, and there were
Right.
people that would, like, so what I like to think about it is not, analytics and this kind of measurement for your trade shows. It's not for everybody, because not everybody is savvy enough to actually want to collect it or know what to do with it if they had it, or
Right.
is in a position where they have to answer up and they need data like that, right? They're getting the higher ups in their chain, whether it's the clients or the VP or whatever, they're demanding it. Let's say, hey, we need, like, I know that I was at the booth and it looked like we had a bunch of people come by. That's great. But I
Yeah.
need a slide I can put up so I can go to the committee meeting and say, well, that's what happened, not just my opinion of what's.
Right. Yeah. And,
So,
and a feeling that goes with that. Cause I'll actually say that, like, how was the traffic? Oh, it felt a little slow. Like, you can't go into the C-suite, into the boardroom, and present feelings, right? It's nice to be empirical about it and actually have data backing up your findings.
and that's exactly what it is. And a lot of times what you find out in a tracking project like that is that you're right, it was a little slow, but now you have some hard data that, well, exactly how slow. And if you do it correctly, you get more subtle data out of it. So, well, what wasn't working was, we just spent a lot of money on a booth redesign. We just changed out these graphics. We rebuilt the layout. So the flow in the booth, if you have a larger booth, you spend time
Mhm.
thinking about the traffic flow. Um,
Yeah.
well, did any of that work? What worked?
Right.
So, to actually use this technology, whichever one you're using, to kind of get this information, you have to start with the right questions, and
Mhm.
so that's kind of how we tackle like a measurement project. It's really, well, what the first question is, what's the questions? What are you trying to find out? What do you want to know? And then you can figure out, well, okay, we can probably get you that answer, and that's part of the
Right.
project when you lay it all out. But like I said, it's not for everybody, because not everybody can really put it all together and say, yes, I am an interested party. I want to know, because sometimes the news is not good. When you have data, sometimes the news is
Yeah.
not so good. Some people don't
Yeah.
want bad news, and
Well, and that's my business coach would always say, don't hate the data, right? Like, don't get mad at the data, but at least you have the lights on, right? At least you know what's what, So Carmine, tell me, what has changed over the last, I don't know, maybe a decade or more, like, in terms of trade show measurement? Like, what are the trends, or what are things shifting? How are things shifting out there?
yeah. Well, I mean, it's certainly it's amped up over, the past several years, bunch of years. Before COVID, things were starting to get measurement was still a little quiet. It's always been done by specialty people with different technologies, but it started with the clicker. And you can still use that, works great. It's just kind of low tech, but I mean, that's cheap and easy. But you can't really capture, subtle information from that kind of thing. But you can have somebody with a clipboard.
Hmm.
But there's various technologies. There's under carpet mats. That's a technology you can figure out where people are walking based on their footfalls. There are optical type of technologies like ours, where we're not measuring bodies so much. We're measuring what people are looking at. So I look at it more as like engagement tracking. That's what it is. We're really
Hmm.
measuring engagement, not just bodies, you know.
Hmm.
Other technologies will track your cell phone walking around in your pocket, you know, and it'll know that there's a cell phone and puts you to, attaches that to a body, and that's a, you know, person. But you know, all the technologies have their pluses and minuses, you know. But all of the technology has gotten better. Some things have gotten beat down because of privacy concerns. So, for example,
Right.
in optical sort of tracking, prior to COVID, right before GDPR came on, you familiar with that whole thing?
Yeah.
So, you know, we were doing tracking before the GDPR came on, and we were able to use facial analysis, right? Actual facial recognition. And we still can use it, but only in very specialized situations, you know, because GDPR really put the, you know, sort of changed the perspective of privacy and the right of privacy to the attendees at shows. And so that goes for data that you supply, your badge scans, like every contact basically with personally identifiable information. And it kind of impacted tracking systems as well. So we're not using facial recognition in general public just because it doesn't really follow the spirit of the
Hmm.
GDPR. However, doesn't really impact us too badly because we can still get enough data out of what we can do within the
Right.
limitations.
I'm curious about the ones with this tracking the cell phone information.
Mm.
Is there GDPR implications on that style, or is it just they just know a phone is present?
Yeah, because it's I don't think there are. It's what GDPR, as far as like tracking, it really comes down to just sort of identifying you personally, right? So
Yeah.
if I'm tracking your cell phone or your iPad in your pocket or wherever it is, I don't believe that they have that kind of GDPR issue. Um, and the approach that we're using now doesn't have that either because we're not collecting any personally identifiable information basically in the
Hmm.
system.
Hmm.
So, you know, the bigger companies are going to be very serious about this. The big, you know, national, international, you know, client, like they're going to
Yeah.
be all over the GDPR. The smaller exhibitors, they still don't really know or necessarily care about it too much. Um, but you know, you know, people need to look to the, you know, the vendor that they're using to get the right answers to those questions, you know.
For sure, for sure. Carmine, let's switch gears a little bit here and let's talk about some of the other products that Pixelite has because I'm familiar, like I said, we just talked about the trade show
Mm.
offering that you have for exhibitors, but how else are you helping companies out there, you know, through technology to whether, you know, engage customers, engage sellers, engage, you know, just to teach? You want to speak to that?
Yeah. So I mean, for 30 years, that's kind of what we've been doing is basically working with most, you know, corporate clients, all types of industries, but really heavy medical, a lot of pharmaceutical clients, medical device technology kind of stuff, and some financials, you know, sort of regulated industries where
Mm.
it's a little bit more complicated to be a player and to work within the, you know, those industries. But so we've helped for decades. We've been working on training materials or educational materials for doctors, nurses, all kinds of practitioners, and patients to help explain how pharmaceuticals work, how medical devices work, and they were always a leader in the use of digital technology. So going way back, you know, when digital technology was, you know, a little small corner of the world that was kind of not well known, there were always some industries that were like that. They were on the cutting edge, and medical always was. So we worked in medical because of that, because we had the services, the technology services to offer. You know, what we've been doing really all these years, aside from our trade show stuff, but even there, it's really just blending technology with creativity to, you know, to get a story that works, basically, to make it to measure, engage and measure, basically. And so, you know, back in the day, I mean, we started with laser discs and all kinds of other technologies which are really old, and but they're all the forerunners of everything that's being done right now. So you go to mobile apps, you know, we develop mobile apps, and those are being used by sales forces. They're being used by, you know, patients, doctors, you know, that's
Mhm.
obviously a big area. We've done games, interactive games to help,
Yeah.
get content across.
What are some examples, Carmine, of games? Because gamification, of course, is a great way to get people engaged, especially if they're competitive. What kind of games have you created for, I don't know, certain not certain, you don't have to tell me the company, but like certain industries, so that we kind of get
Yeah.
a sense of what's possible out there.
Well, quiz games are really a really popular approach, and especially in medical, as I say, doctors are a very competitive group as well as a
Hmm.
very knowledgeable group. So they love to get challenged by different types of quiz games, and we just pitched this whole kind of like Jeopardy kind of concept. It was a blend of like Jeopardy and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Kind of invented a new game based on some of those things, which those elements that people are familiar with, but repackaged into a whole new thing. And so that was actually for a trade show. They were going to use it in the booth and have, basically something like that would be based on an iPad. Booth staff would say, "Hey, would you like to test your knowledge against your colleagues?" That's always a great way to get a
Challenge,
doctor to
yeah.
say yes, because they want to beat their colleagues. And it would have a big dashboard up on the back wall, so it would be a kind of a wireless cloud-based
Like a
application.
like a leaderboard, Carmine? Like
Yes, a
a
leaderboard.
show
Yeah.
that, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so then they would, there would be a real-time leaderboard and people would do the challenge, get on the board, that kind of a thing. And so those kinds of games been developing for years because they fit in many places. We did something really cool with virtual reality.
Yeah.
During
Okay.
COVID, a lot of these companies were trying to figure out how to virtualize everything, right? Of course, now, thank God, they're back to live. Um, but for virtual reality, we did this training game where we had uh, it was for sales reps. It was for pharmaceutical reps, and the reps would actually drive a lunar lander kind of 3D vehicle. So it's kind of a
Okay.
driving game, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Virtual. And they would basically drive between various stations, educational stations. So they were like moon bases. And there was like, you'd had to drive the car and then, the gas would run out and you'd have to answer a question to fill up the tank. And then you'd drive to these little locations and you'd jump inside and then you were inside a space station and video and content came up and they had to answer questions and have discussions. So it was
Wow.
kind of a cool idea, you know?
Yeah. And that was virtual reality or augmented reality, Carmine?
That was virtual. So I think virtual
Virtual. So they're putting
basically
on a headset for that then.
you don't really have to have the headset on for that. I mean, that would give you immersive, right? So we've developed
Okay.
those too. Prior to COVID, that was a lot more popular. During COVID,
Right.
nobody wanted to touch anything like that. And even now
Right.
it's a little iffy. But so you can have immersive virtual reality like that, which would involve a headgear, and we've done projects like that, of course, and they were popular at trade show booths, right, for quite a while. I don't think it's as popular right now, but there were tons of trade show things like that where they'd sit you down and you put on the helmet and go.
Yeah.
And they're great because I mean, fully immersive. Of course, nobody even saw that technology before, so it was really hot. People wanted to see that
Yeah.
too.
It had a little bit of like a what's going on here kind of feeling, right? And it's a
Yeah.
little more commonplace now. I do like it when they would also put up a screen so you can see what that person is experiencing, right? Which I think they did most of the time,
Hmm.
so that you kind of get a sense of what is that experience going to be for me when I get in line, right? Like I love that kind of a piece to that, right?
Yeah, it's an amusement park, and people would line up. A lot of those shows, man, they had big lines. But it's a little bit of a challenge coming up with something like that too. I would say maybe 10% of the people were like, "Oh, this is too much for me." Because it's not, putting on headgear and seeing
Yeah.
some kind of fantastical thing is not for everybody. You know,
Especially if you have like you get dizzy easy or something like that, like a little bit
yeah.
of yeah.
You always have to put them in a chair. That's super important.
So
Uh,
I want to ask you, like the world is so complex, and especially when we're talking technology and well, medical devices you're talking about. What are some ways that Pixelite has helped simplify things so that it can be more engaging? Do you have examples of that, of working with companies that you've reduced the complexity so that you can teach and learn?
I mean, that's the whole challenge, right? I mean, to really
Yeah.
get it down. I mean, through the years, we've done many medical animations. And so you might have seen some of these. It's like for pharma, they might be, blood and guts, and you see molecules moving around and stuff like that. And we've done a lot of those types of things. And for medical devices, it's the same kind of thing. Like, if you want to know how to repair a hernia, I know all about it. I spent many years working on hernia repair. And our company produced all kinds of materials and content and animations. And I've been in operating rooms. We videotaped those procedures. I've seen it all up close and directed
Wow.
those kinds of projects. Uh, it's incredibly interesting stuff. But yeah, boiling it down to the core steps is, of course, what it's all about. And to keep it as simple as possible. I mean, simplicity is a huge thing for me. Everything really. Everything I do, I just try and keep it as simple as
Yeah.
possible. It's writing an email or creating a story, a video, a clip. The more you can beat out of it, the more effective the remainder's going to be.
And I think that's
Thank
a
you so
muscle
much for
that you
listening
have
to Engaging
exercise,
Personalities.
and,
If
and
you
you're doing
believe
it a
this
lot
world needs
with
more
different companies,
engagement
'cause
and you're an
I'm
industry
gonna
leader or
guess
you have
that
an
you are a
interesting
bit of
take
a-
on
of
rehumanizing
a
business,
filter,
go to
where they go, we want to talk about this,
go.engagify.ai
and all these things.
/podcast
And you go, whoa,
guest
whoa, whoa.
to apply
What
and
is
come on the show.
essence?
If you got something out of this interview, do you mind sharing it on your social
Absolutely.
media?
I
Just
mean,
grab a quick screenshot
we
with
were
your phone
working
and text it
together
to a
on some
friend
kind of
or post it on the
project, I would
socials.
just ask them,
If you
like,
know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on
I love
social
it,
media
because,
to
I'm
let them know
interested
about the
in
show.
almost everything.
Include the hashtag
And,
Engaging Personalities.
asking the
I
you know,
love
if
seeing
you
your
wanna get the
posts
right
and
answer, you
guest
have to ask the right
suggestions.
questions.
We are regularly
So,
putting out
I
new
ask a lot
episodes
of
and content.
questions,
To make sure you don't miss
I
any
recommend
episode, go ahead and subscribe. Your
But,
thumbs up,
you
ratings,
know,
and
there's so
reviews
much
go
to
a long
uncover,
way
right? I
to
mean,
help promote the
if
show
you're used to
and mean
doing
a
that
lot
kind
to
of
me
thing, that's
and my
basically
team.
what I do.
Want to know more? Go to our
I'm a
website,
solution
engagify.ai, or follow me on
And all I
LinkedIn.
do is try and
Thanks for
figure out
listening
what the heck.
and stay
How do you get
engaged.
down to the bottom of that onion? I don't know how to get down to the bottom. What's peeling the onion back, right? So, that's the process basically you use to go through almost anything, right? You want to try and simplify it, get to the core elements, weed out the stuff that's not important. It's good, but it's not critical. It's not core.
Right. Right.
So that's kind of the creative process for a lot of projects, and whatever that is, I just love to ask questions.
I love your passion, Carmine. Just the idea that you get so much exposure to different industries. It probably keeps it fresh for you, as I'm guessing.
I think it's the greatest job ever, really, because I mean, I have been exposed to so much stuff. I mean, I
Yeah.
couldn't even tell you, and I don't know if you're interested, but just many different industries, many different places, many different products, technologies, people, and
Hmm.
it's been great. It's fantastic. I just love it. And, I mean,
Well,
because of that, I think maybe I have a unique little bit of perspective that maybe somebody will find value with.
speaking of that, if someone was listening to our conversation here and said, maybe Carmine can help my company, what kind of companies do you typically help, and then where can people find you to dig in deeper?
Well, traditionally we would be working with marketing departments and, as I said, a lot of regulated industries. So medical and medical device, medical technology is that's really a big part of our work. But we've done work with financial and other types of regulated industries like that. But in the grand scheme of things, anybody who needs our stuff, we're really happy to talk to them about it. Um, and so it could be our custom development services, which is really everything, mobile apps and animations, video, web applications. We do a lot of really serious, cool, fun stuff. Or our many suite products, which are, these pre-developed products. You can find those at manysuite.com. Perfect to drop into anybody's, trade show situation, whether it's engaging to stop traffic, kind of like what Anders does, but not nearly as good as that. And
Okay.
also tracking stuff, right? To kind of
Yeah.
just to build thing. And also our third product in many suites called Deliver Many. and that's a product that's basically allows you to roll up all your digital assets into a branded portal that you can instantly deliver to your targets. So if you're a company that has a lot of assets, we got sales slicks and videos and microsites, and I want you to link into me, and I can roll that all into a thing instead of doing the QR code, shoot the QR code and get a PDF. That's not good stuff. That's cheap and easy, but it's not good. And there's no tracking. So we're all about tracking.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and share with us your expertise, your passion, and the products that you bring to market. And I want to thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate the opportunity. I hope this was interesting, everyone. And you can find me on LinkedIn, of course, if anybody thinks that we can help them with any of their stuff. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Carmine. And to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in once again. And until next time, you know what to do. Stay engaged.
Thank you so much for listening to Engaging Personalities. If you believe this world needs more engagement and you're an industry leader or you have an interesting take on rehumanizing business, go to go.engagify.ai/podcast-guest to apply and come on the show. If you got something out of this interview, do you mind sharing it on your social media? Just grab a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show. Include the hashtag Engaging Personalities. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episode, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our website, engagify.ai, or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening and stay engaged.